Welcome back to Meat City Gaming. JD here with an achievement guide for Kronos Battle Worlds Mission 1. The achievements for this first mission of the game require you to complete the mission with all of the secondary objectives, and complete the mission without requesting any reinforcements. So for this first mission, it's actually pretty straightforward. I'll get into a little bit of the nuance of the game as the replay goes through, but if you're relatively comfortable with turn-based hex strategy games, you should be fine here. But this will give you an example of some of the mechanics of the game, and you'll also know what you have to do in order to complete this mission. The difficulty does ramp up a little bit as the missions progress, so we'll get into that in a bit. First, I want to cover a couple of the interesting mechanics here. You're about to see the first small-scale battle here in the tutorial mission where they're kind of teaching you the game. This game has a couple of unique features. One of them is flanking damage. So just like any other RTS game, you move your units and then you can also attack. But unlike most games, if you have multiple units adjacent to the unit you're attacking, the damage that you do to that unit goes up. So you can see I positioned 2 units next to this enemy unit that I'm engaging, and because they're just situated next to it, multiple units are situated next to it, each attack done to that unit will have increased damage. The second interesting mechanic that this game has is counterattacking. If you attack an enemy, or if an enemy attacks you, and your unit is capable of counterattacking, it will do so. So if you have 2 units that both attack with a range of 1, then the first unit attacks on their turn. Well, it has to be within 1 space in order to make that attack. The enemy unit that you attacked also has a range of 1, so it can counterattack. So you shoot first and do damage. It will return fire and do damage. So you don't just, on your turn, get to do free damage to the enemy. If you're not making careful selections, the enemy will also do return damage to you. And the third kind of interesting mechanic is the amount of damage you do with a unit is tied to that unit's health. Usually, if you have a unit, as long as it has 1 HP available, it's going to do its full damage if it gets a shot off. Not so in this game. If your unit has 50% of its health, it can only do 50% of its normal damage. So if you have a unit with a sliver of health, it's really not going to be able to do much damage. So keep those things in mind as the battles get a little more intense, as the skirmish, the number of units engaging increase. You really want to apply those principles to the selections that you're making. You want to make attacks to units that have multiple units flanking them, so you do increased damage. You want to attack first if you can, because that first attack deals damage, and then any subsequent attack, whether it's the counter attack or the enemy's attack on their turn, will do less damage because they've been damaged. So rather than letting the enemy attack when they're at full health, you get the first hit in, now they're attacking at 80, 70, 60% health, and they're doing less damage. And also, you can manipulate the counterattack. So some units can attack with a range of 1. Some units attack with a range of 2. So use your 2-ranged unit to attack the 1-range unit, and it won't be able to counterattack. You'll get a free hit in at a range of 2. You'll reduce that unit's hit points, so its return fire on its turn will be less damaging, and it won't be able to do an immediate counterattack because it physically can't reach the unit that you attacked with. So those are some interesting mechanics that this has that kind of put a twist on the standard turn-based affair. One other minor note is that each unit in the game gets 2 actions per turn, but they're not your standard like XCOM where it's a move and a move, or a move and an attack, or if you make an attack, your turn ends. In this case, each unit has different types of two turns. So some units can do a move and an attack. Some can do a move and a move. Some can do a move and a special, which could be another move. It could be another attack. And the order that you take those turns, those actions in, doesn't matter. So if you have a unit in your face, you can attack first, do your damage, and then move and pull back that unit to safety. So it can attack, do damage, but if it's weak, it can then pull back to safety to try and get repaired or let some other units take the damage. So really interesting mechanics here that'll play out as these missions go on. So now we're in the first mission, and you can see they're teaching you some mechanics here, and one of the mechanics is capturing enemy buildings. You have to use an infantry unit, those mechanized little robots. They attack a building, and instead of destroying those buildings, they'll actually capture it. Larger buildings require more attacks, but once you capture it, they're yours. And some of the buildings, like those 2 depots to the south, have units housed within them. So when you capture them, those units you now have. You can then deploy those units, increasing the strength of your army, and use them to complete the rest of the scenario. So that's kind of the early tip here. That you have this tutorial where they're kind of teaching you some of the mechanics. You get this little base that you can overrun, you can take over, you can beef up the size of your army, and then you get into the first real conflict for this mission, which is trying to cross this bridge to take this base that's situated on the island just to the north of me here. That is the secondary objective for this mission. It's to capture that base. It's pretty tough to miss that objective in this map. You have to roll right through it to get to your primary objective, which is to rescue a cargo ship that has crash landed. It's to the north of this island, so you literally have to drive right by it to get there. And you could choose not to attack that command center and therefore not take it and not complete your secondary objective. But you do need to work your way through here, so you're pretty much going to accomplish it as long as you're going towards the main objective. But don't forget to capture that building as you make your way through here. And so I'm playing the game at an increased speed. This is a turn-based strategy game. I'm not doing perfect runs here. This is actually my first or second run for most of these, where I'm trying to get through it relatively cleanly. But this is by no means the perfect strategy. This is just an example of what worked. So I will make mistakes. I'll not do things in the most efficient way. But hopefully you'll get an idea of what the mission entails, an idea of how to attack it. You'll see something that actually worked, and you'll be able to use those tips when you formulate your own playthrough. If you want to try things a little differently, more efficiently, by all means, feel free to do so. But the big thing here is you have this choke point where you're trying to cross these two bridges to get to this northern island, and the enemy has a decent defense setup. They've got a gun turret, which is in front of the right bridge, and those gun turrets are deadly. They have a full 3 hex range. They can attack at 1, 2, or 3 spaces, and they get 2 attacks, and they are strong attacks. If you put a lightly armored unit in range of those things, they're going to get destroyed. So instead, the way to do this is to get your artillery units in range of the gun turret and use it to lob artillery shells at that gun turret until it's destroyed. Then it's easier to clean up the rest of the units and make the advance here. Artillery has a maximum range, but they also have a minimum range. So artillery is vulnerable if something gets up right next to it. I think actually 2 spaces, whether they're in 1 or 2 spaces of the artillery can't physically attack them back. So you want to make sure. One example setup that I use is a tank, right, with heavy armor, lots of hit points. Put that in the front. Put a 2 range unit like these bandits in your second row, so that anything that attacks the tank can get 2 attacks from the bandit behind it. And then your artillery is third in line, where it can lob shells over both of those to hit a wide range of targets. So we're just kind of methodically making our way up here. We're being cautious, pulling back units that get damaged, and using the tactics that we discussed earlier. Putting as many units around the enemy that you're attacking as possible, trying to strike first, trying to use your 2 range units to attack 1 range units so they don't get the free hits back at you, and using our tanks, our meat shields up front to kind of take the damage whenever we can. Early on, there's no real base building of your own that you do. You can't really produce your own units other than by capturing them. But on the ground, there are scattered supplies, and some of them are healing supplies, and some of them are ammo supplies. So certain units, like the artillery, has a certain amount of ammunition that it runs through. Every time it fires a shot, it loses one of those pieces of ammunition, and the ammo will need to be replenished. So one way you can do that is to run over these certain hexes on the ground. They'll give ammo back to your ammo units. And other things on the ground are repair units, where if you have a damaged unit and run over it, you'll repair back up to a percentage of your hit points. So keep an eye out for those on the map as well as you're progressing through here. You have your units that are important. Remember, if it's at 30% health, it's only doing 30% damage. So you want to make sure you heal up when you can. One other note, there is a veterancy system in place here. Like you can see, some of the units have a little triangle or a corporal mark on the little orange arrow. You get 1 of those at your first level up, and you get 2 of them when they get to the second level up. And at each level up, you can pick a perk for that vehicle. It might be slightly increased armor, it might be slightly increased damage, or slightly increased range. You get to pick from one of two options for each level up. And if you get a vehicle with 2 level ups and you pick 2 skills for them, you get to keep a couple of those missions in your personal reserve, which you can then use in future missions. You get to select a couple of them to carry through. So, for example, if you have a 2-star or a rank 2 unit from your first mission, it'll be available for selection at the beginning of your second mission, which can make a big difference if you have some options available and you know what you're going to be heading into. Having that tank with extra damage or having that bandit that can fire at air units might be very valuable. So if you can finagle the system to allow you to get some 2 veteran units that you can take with you, by all means do so. It's only going to help you later on. One other thing, whenever there are bases to capture, you might see a blue, it looks like a blue crate on the ground. That usually has one of those mechanized infantry units in it. Remember, if you're trying to capture a building, you need to have an infantry unit. And if you lose them all fighting, you won't be able to capture any buildings. So the way around that, the game seems to put one there for you to capture, right? If you run over that box, it has an infantry unit in it, and you can then use that to capture the buildings. Just make sure when you unlock that unit, there's no enemies around. You don't want to then lose that unit that you had and then not be able to capture any buildings. So there you can see I completed the secondary objective. We captured that middle command post, and now the last thing we need to do is push up north here once again across a double bridge to engage in the final battle and try to rescue the downed cargo ship and the units that are there with it. So it's a fairly straightforward battle. You have units that will unlock for your control that are up and to the left, up by the cargo ship. So it's basically a 2-flank attack on the enemies. Now, if you're not careful, you could blow it, right? You could lose this fight here. The enemy, they fight competently. The game makes a habit of saying this is a hard game at the beginning, and they're not going to take it easy on you. And I've certainly seen the difficulty increase as I've gone through a couple of the later levels. But early on, again, if you're playing smart, if you know the mechanics, and if you use those mechanics properly, you won't have any trouble with this mission and accomplishing it to get all 3 of the achievements. So the secondary achievement, as we said, was capturing that base. The third achievement, the no reinforcements, you'd have to go into a menu, and every so many turns, there's an option in that menu. I think you have to hit Y to request reinforcements, and they'll kind of drop them in for you. Just don't do that, and you'll get that achievement, right? If it looks like you're going to lose the mission and you need the reinforcements again, you could try to call in the reinforcements, get the secondary objectives done, and then try to redo it without calling in the reinforcements and not worrying about the secondary objectives. That may be a viable strategy, but so far what I've seen, you can do all 3 achievements in one go. So at this point, this is just kind of working through the final phase here. We've got more units than the enemies. We're going to position ourselves wisely. There is no requirement for any other way to accomplish this. You don't need to do it with a certain number of losses. You don't need to do it in a certain number of turns. There are no other conditions. Just get all the secondary objectives done. Don't call in reinforcements. So at this point, it's just a cleanup. And once you have finished doing that, you'll complete the first mission, and you'll have unlocked 3 of the achievements. And it's worth noting that all of the achievements in the entire game are the exact same way. So there's 13 missions, and each of the achievements is complete a mission, complete that mission with no reinforcements, complete that mission's secondary objective. So they're very vanilla, but that makes for an easy achievement guide as we work our way through here. So I'm going to step out as the battle wraps up. You'll see what I do to clean up the fight, and hopefully that will give you a little bit of insight into how to complete the first mission and acquire all 3 achievements for it. So hope you guys enjoyed that. Stay tuned for mission 2. That's coming up next. Good luck out there with your achievements. Hope you're enjoying this game. It's pretty good. It's low quality. It's a Kickstarter, but it's well put together, right? There's some cool mechanics and strategies here that I haven't really seen in a turn-based game before. So I am enjoying it so far. I'm not taking it too seriously. The story's a bit silly and all that, but as far as the mechanics go, it's interesting. It's like a puzzle. I like trying to solve puzzles, so that's what we're going to attempt to do here. So thank you for joining me. See you in the next one.